are World Eaters. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And forgiveness is bullshit. My name is Red Charyszyn.
I'm Jamie Walsh.
What the hell am I doing here? I'm Anastasia.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the very daddy-focused film, Ad Astra.
Hashtag dad stuff.
Hashtag dad stuff. As you've noticed, dearest listeners, my intrepid co-host, Shahir Dowd, is not with us this week. He is currently in Budapest, I believe, throwing a lovely party for one Will Smith.
Yeah.
He directed a concert or a film or something. He'll talk, believe me, he'll talk about it. But if you check out Shahir's Instagram, if you'd like to see him chatting with Will Smith, very surreal for me.
Really surreal.
But in the interim, I have brought on an all-star crew of guests to man this.
All-star. I like what you did.
See, I was going to keep going to man this vessel all about man stuff, but it's weird.
It's man stuff.
It's man stuff. Yeah. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming on. You've all been on the show before. No one has.
I'm happy to make this season. I feel like it's been a while since I've been in season.
I wish we did seasons. Actually, no, I don't. Well, then there'd be breaks. No, I don't know what I would do with myself if I didn't have to go and see a film and then talk about it every week.
It's a really good exercise. And I say that because I keep turning up here. But it's because I see a movie with Matt and then I leave and I'm like, I have a lot of opinions. And Matt's like, well, how convenient for you.
No, well, to be honest, and actually, one of the other reasons why I really enjoy doing this, especially when I can have people back on with different opinions other than Shahir and myself, because and even the listeners email in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com when you all sort of come at us with your opinions, and I mean that in a very good way. It breaks my sort of like very thin veil of like, well, I know what's going on, and then like I can actually start thinking about things critically from a different point of view other than my own. So it's all wrapped up. It's all it's a chrysalis of enjoyment / derailment.
It's always good to get a dichotomy of opinions.
So we're going to jump right into the movie this week. We have a couple emails. We'll do them next week because there's a lot I feel like to not necessarily unpack, but to talk through. I feel like the unpacking, this movie did the unpacking for us.
It already did the unpacking. If the clothes are out on the bed, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
The movie was like, I'm just going to walk you through this one, okay?
Yeah.
And again, I hope we're not coming off on it too harshly right away. I will say we were looking up stuff right before this podcast, doing a little research, if you will, other than just seeing the film. And I was not familiar enough with basic Latin to realize that the title of this film, Ad Astra, just literally meant to the stars.
Yeah, that was in the voiceover.
That's so
Was it really?
No, it just told you mankind always look to the stars, and then the title came up, and you're like, oh.
So it did.
I so very much feel that was the working title that no one bothered to change.
Little did you know it was actually called Gremlins 4.
I've been like, how are we gonna make this thing cool? Ooh, okay, so let's Google Latin stuff. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. No one's going to Google that. Yeah, let's go with that. Like, that has happened for many creative people.
But to be fair, I didn't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I am the baseline of folks. So that exercise, while silly, Jamie, worked on me.
My frustration is that it doesn't have anything to do with the movie, really. Literally, it does. Literally, it does.
You can. I mean, look, whenever you're sort of,
it's a vague and generic title for a movie about space.
So here's the challenge.
This movie isn't about space, and that's one of the reasons why that doesn't work as so much as a title.
Right, and we'll get into that in a little
I have
bit.
A counterpoint, Anastasia.
But so I think, because we don't quite know yet, because we haven't finished watching Sorry, everyone's very distracted by we have a nice French press of coffee because we are a fancy podcast. Again, sorry, Shahir, that you're too busy getting jiggy with it out of the States.
Welcome to Au Bon Pen, where we review movies.
And we have a French press of coffee, and she pushed it down, and everyone just literally like focused on the magic of the
like
French press.
Pneumatic and smooth.
Where's Clooney? Get him in here. He sells coffee machines now, right?
He didn't take this movie.
Oh, well. What I was going to say was, if we are not happy with the title, or we think the title is too baseline and does not go beyond a superficial level of what the film does, I would like to challenge us all by the end of this podcast to come up with a new title for this movie.
Great, got it.
Does it have to be spelled out of the same letters? Like,
No. It does not have to be an anagram.
yeah, does it have to be an anagram? That's what I'm
No,
wondering.
it does not.
Okay.
But bonus points if you think of an additional anagram title.
Okay, got it.
And this goes for you, dear listeners. If you would like to write us in what you think your preferred title for the film Ad Astra is once you've seen it, you can email us in again at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at onlymoviepod. Let us know. We'll go through some of those next week if you send them in. Also, please leave some iTunes love if you have a free moment. 5 stars being the best, but we'll take however many you can spare.
Yeah, I'll just go to the stars. Really.
Yeah, go to the.
Oh.
This is why we
This
pay
has been a
you
great
the
podcast, everybody. Have a good time.
Yeah, this is why we pay you the no bucks for showing up, Red. We appreciate
I got
that.
to watch the French press.
You did. Payment enough. I guess I'll read the IMDb synopsis.
Oh yeah,
and then we
because
can
that's
just-
always very accurate.
And then we can just dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Astronaut Ray McBride undertakes a mission across an unforgiving solar system to uncover the truth about his missing father and his doomed expedition that now, 30 years later, threatens the universe.
I already have taken issue with that.
I mean, okay. Without can you talk about your issues without giving spoilers?
Let's just
yet?
highlight unforgiving space and get back to that later.
Sure. I was going to say, in any of these movies, when has space been like, nah, you get a mulligan? Like when?
This movie.
This movie, yeah, space was not the problem in this movie.
No.
Also true.
Anastasia, again, I'm going to challenge you on this later. We're just going to go to the mat and see what happens.
I'm here. I'm right here.
Oh, we are at the
You're
mat.
at the mat. Welcome to Thunderdome Population U.
This movie, it's not, there's something not unique about what I'm about to say. I think this is most movies.
This is why people come here.
Space is the backdrop for something else in this
It's
movie.
like
Yeah.
it's like
you know?
And it's a very pretty backdrop, but it's
Yeah.
kind of irrelevant to what's happening.
And it was a smart move because we're all into space. Everybody likes space movies.
Except people that don't like space movies.
Well, I don't. Oh, they're so boring. I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah,
I'm just
they're
kidding.
wrong.
Listeners.
Wow. All right.
I can say this without spoiling about space and actually the entire setup, which is for us. Well, the movie itself is set in the near possible future. Okay, you
Yes.
can discuss the science whatever the word.
Implementation.
Implications.
Time of much conflict and hope.
later. But for us, space is exotic. But for Roy's character, it's mundane. He's just a upper middle class guy with a beer, kind of like it's not a desk job, but it's the equivalent. I mean, he's always wanted to be an astronaut, and he kind of is, but it's kind of like,
Isn't he a pretty? I thought he was like a pretty good astronaut.
You know,
Is that
he
not the
is, but
case?
I mean, just take a look at where we are right now. Space isn't as exotic there.
Yes.
So he's just upper middle class,
But-
postal worker.
That was frankly one of my favorite things about the movie. The design of a mundane exercise.
exactly.
Like him
That's what I'm
traveling to the moon commercially is
A little bit of a spoiler there, but well, yeah.
Well, it's not.
This movie sets it up so that it's not exciting as we today think it is.
But
and
I
I think
love
that's really clever about the movie.
And it
See-
felt very 2001: A Space Odyssey. The way they showed what space travel to the moon will be like, landing on the moon, what the moon is going to be like.
We're hitting on a lot of different points right now. So let's sort of hit them one by one. First and foremost, without getting into too much of a spoilery thing, and I agree with 80% of the end of what you said and 20% of not the beginning. So basically, let's talk about the technology of this film and how it is presented, because that is the thing about this movie that I absolutely loved. This film portrays space in kind of how you've all said, kind of a mundane, there were no forks in medieval times, therefore there are no forks at medieval times. Sir, would you like a refill on that Pepsi sort of way? Where it's like everything is commercial. That's a reference to the film Cable Guy, when Janine Garofalo is a serving wench at medieval times, and Ben Stiller and Jim Carrey are there, and they ask for forks, and then they realize that they can't have them.
Ben Stiller's in Cable Guy? It doesn't matter. Let's move on.
Right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so space.
Oh no, Matthew Broderick. Wow, Matthew Broderick, Ben Stiller. What's
This
wrong
has
with
been the
me?
oldie podcast about
Yeah,
cable
Jamie,
guys.
keep me honest. Yes, Matthew Broderick in Ye Old Fashioned Cable Guy. But the point of what I was trying to make was when seeing this, it's super interesting and also a little bit depressing about. Like the space films oftentimes are a little bit wondrous, or even the way that they're shot.
Yes.
I'll even go like Interstellar is, of course, is science fantasy in a way where, like, even though it is very scientific, the way that the planets we're seeing them at least have a fantasy like undertone, or as what even if they are scientifically correct, they are portrayed to us in a way that we would feel like
We're
would
looking
be
at a
natural
Yeah,
fantasy
possibility
film.
of
art
science.
direction adds a trippiness to it.
Gravity, although it's been a while since I've seen Gravity, has
Drop something right here.
yeah. Hey, it still works. But the film Gravity is not necessarily. There's nothing sort of fantastical about that outside of the realm of science. But the way that it is shot and the way the characters do the things that they do is sort of, it's through a lens of what I would consider a little bit more like elevated in a emotional fantasy sort of way. Even The Martian does this a little bit more too, with I guess, and this is a weird thing to sort of say, but like adding comedy, which then adjusts the entire fantasy of the film.
It adds filler to the vast emptiness of space.
So-
And this movie didn't necessarily always want to do that.
Well, so and it's an interesting look at like all of like what space travel will probably be like if we make it that far in the future. I mean, there's the thing about when he's flying commercially to the moon, where they offer him, like, they're in a nice little thing, and then he needs the blanket and pillow package, and it's $125.
yeah. I think a lot of the
Definitely flying
representation
Delta to the moon.
in those other movies, you're talking about the excitement of what's possible, and in this movie, you're confined by the reality of what is.
And yeah. And I think and I loved that, again, for the sort of the first 2/3 of this film. I think where it does kind of fall apart for me, is at least from when that wonder and that, like, oh my God, look at the technical achievement that they pulled off, showing us this world that feels like it could very well be real in 100 years, is the moon has commercial flights going to it. Great, cool. Mars, getting to Mars, has military flights going to it.
Space Force.
Yeah. He was right. Everything after that, which is supposed to be like literally, no pun intended, the final frontier, all felt entirely the same as those other two things, and very, very possible.
Yeah.
It all
and
felt
also
very-
felt too easy for the long distance. You're like, nobody's checked on them before. It only took you 3 months to get there.
Yeah, or if they had, and I'm sure they did.
It wasn't that hard.
We had things going on here. There was like
There was a
Coachella.
lot going on. Dancing with the Stars season 89 was in the middle. You don't know who's going to win that. I mean, you just have to really pay attention.
Sorry, I hadn't thought about that. It was like an 18-day trip.
No, it was
Why
3
didn't
months.
they
It was 3
send
months.
someone
3 months.
earlier?
It was 3
I guess
months.
they didn't know where he was. They didn't know where he was, and then they got his coordinates. That's
Well, they thought he was lost, but then, like, I guess you
yeah.
can't.
They thought he was dead. I think.
I will say, I'll try to defend the science of this movie anyway. Like, flying from planet to planet, even in our solar system, like, it's not like it's the same path you'd go on. Like, you might be able to figure it out math-wise, but, like, that's a big, expensive thing if you don't know anybody is actually there.
yes.
Yeah.
Sure, but I don't think you need to defend the science.
No, I don't think this movie was
it's
about
not important.
the science. I didn't care in the movie.
Yeah,
that
they
it only
just
took
wanted
them
to
3
feel
months
like
get
here's
there.
the thing, and that's what it is.
I felt so for the most part, I thought the science of this film was fairly well done in that I'm not listen, I do not know about space travel in any grand terms, but I do feel that they had the right to not sound too cynical scapegoat of saying it's the near future. No. There is more technology available to us in this world than you have, so maybe chill out if you're going to go on Reddit later.
Well, you say scapegoat, I say narrative exercise.
Sure, yes,
Yeah,
that's a better term. And so I didn't necessarily feel like I was ever like getting shark jumped by ideas of the science fiction.
Wait, the shark is jumping you?
There's a part, and I don't want to.
Henry Winkler's on a shark.
Well,
and they go
when there's no
over you.
gravity, anything's possible.
Oh, that's fair.
When there are a few moments where I was like, well, what the hell's going on here? And then towards the end, and I won't say what happens, but there's one like kind of bare bones thing that has to happen when I was like, this is not accurate at all. But I don't know that it matters in this film. You can kind of wave it away.
Yeah, they established pretty early on this thing's
although
happening.
Everyone freaks the hell out about Gravity and how it's inaccurate, even though I think that's a far better film than this one. And I also would like to say, I would like to see anybody give 10% a damn about boat technology accuracy in films than they do about space travel, because if you're going to complain about one thing, like look at how cars work, look at how any vehicle works, you haven't been paying attention.
we had this conversation after the film, which is like how boat physics and the way like sailing a sailboat works in films is so wrong in comparative. But Jamie was saying that no one ever really
Leo's
complains.
in front, T-Pain's on top.
Yeah.
It's just,
and they're singing the "I'm on a boat" song. Yeah,
That's it. That's how it moves.
yeah.
I've just noticed that every time there's ever a movie about space travel, everyone's like, well, I know a little bit more about space than the average person.
I've got
but then
my
they
flip-flops.
don't care about any other kind of
Flippy
film.
floppies.
So
And my
I
flippy
don't
floppies.
have a lot of patience.
Well, no, but here's the thing. I don't think that there aren't people that call that out. I think the cross-section of people that call out space stuff is the Venn diagram is also very large with people that complain on the internet. I don't think boat people... I think boat people have other things that they're doing. They could complain to their buddies how they saw a thing, but they're not going to go on forums and be like, man, this schooner was really fucked up. Like, like that's not what boat folk do.
I can't wait till we're all old and can afford boats, and that's what we're doing.
Man, this scooter thing was sure fucked up.
Right? It's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I look forward to my skipjack, to be honest.
There you go. So it is an interesting thing that because I feel like, man, space stuff you could actually argue probably a lot more even if you're wrong than boat stuff, right? Because like boat stuff, bless you, boat stuff, I feel like because it's on Earth or on terrestrial, like you can be like, well, let's check the boat. Oh no, boat does this. Where in space, not everyone can just go check the space.
I'm going to be honest with you, as a person who does a lot of work with VFX artists and companies.
I believe you're currently working on a film about a man from Ireland.
Yes. And an Irish man.
Yes.
That's what I hear. In fact, by the time this airs, we'll have had our world premiere.
Yeah, which is very exciting. I saw the second trailer, I believe. Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, and I really, really enjoyed the second trailer.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear.
It captured me in a way that, to be honest, the first trailer did not. And the second one, I was like, oh yes, like it felt very, very nice.
Yeah, we're really excited to show this to the world, and so is Netflix.
Yeah, so
that's great. But being a person who has to deal with often these constructions, you will be amazed at how many people don't know how things like cars work.
Watch the Fast and the Furious.
I mean, I sure don't, but
but it's sometimes you see these first composites coming by, and Shahir can talk a lot to this.
He will.
A lot of stuff is thrown out the window for the sake of the story.
Yeah,
and that's also what's important. Everything that you do, in the film, every choice that you make should be in service of the story, which means sometimes you have to break the rules of the very things we know. And as long as it doesn't stop you from absorbing the story, then it's effective.
Yeah, as long as the story isn't about the technical aspects, then you're good.
Yes.
Yeah. And for this film, because the story isn't, I didn't care about the couple of moments that I was like, with regards to the technology. It didn't matter because it wasn't important to the story.
Yeah, I had... the only thing I took umbrage with was the feeling of space travel and how it did all kind of feel the same. And for the first 2/3, when they were in the inner solar system, I guess, that felt very like, oh yeah, of course, this is not novel to anyone. That you can buy Jamie was joking, a Delta ticket and go to the moon. There was a subway on the moon.
Of course, it would be Delta.
That terminal in LaGuardia, man, really needs to get fixed up. But then when they went to the outer reaches,
like LaGuardia.
So that's when it sort of threw me, and it wasn't that it wasn't in service. It was never in service of the story, but the technology of everything is what actually grabbed me more than the story.
That's
and therefore, when it sort of betrayed the own feeling that it set up by actually, this is a weird sentence, but by actually just sticking with it, even though it made less sense in the story at that time, that's when I started having a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, well, and like, when he goes to the moon, when he's traveling across the moon, and he talks about sort of the disappointment of it and how we're just still competing for resources, nothing has really changed. We feel like, I think that was a good like nod to the viewer of like, you're in the future. It's still a bummer. We haven't figured it out.
Future is still awful.
I wanted more of that in the film.
Well, the thing is, and again, I'll go back to this, the world they set up in the first 2/3 of this movie, space antennas, flying commercial to the moon, going to a military mission on Mars, not even realistic, interesting. Those are things where I was like, and that's the reason when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, cool. And then there's a mysterious thing out in the end of the solar system that's causing like flare-ups that are like messing with like EMP pulses and shit. And I was like, hell yeah. And then like, oh no, it's actually Tommy Lee Jones. And then it looking real haggard in a video Skype call. And like then sort of the mystery is set up from there. However, it's... We're going to get to spoilers very quickly.
Yeah.
But I also want to say
think we
one
have
more
to.
thing before we get into that stuff, because I feel like the more we start talking about things that are spoilery in this film, I don't want to say more harsh will be, but the more we will not be singing praises a lot.
Okay, well then I guess we should go through some of the good stuff.
Well, kind of. So basically what I wanted to talk about again, let's go back to the moon, and Jamie, even that thing you brought up about, let's go back to the moon. I hear there's wizards there.
That wizard's from the moon.
That wizards. Thanks, Peter Dinklage.
That's our big spoiler. Snape killed Dumbledore.
Yeah, no. Wow, we went a lot of different references, a lot of different ways there.
I'm not proud of what I just said.
No, yes, you are. Don't become a liar as well. So the moon sequence, Jamie and I were just over coffee this morning reading about how the moon sequence was done.
In the desert, conspiracy theory much?
Yeah, they
shot it, yeah, in a desert.
They shot the practical stuff in the desert, then they recolored.
Just like Stanley Kubrick did on the moon landing?
Yep, yeah, they used the exact same.
Well, I kept thinking about 2001: A Space Odyssey, and this.
Yeah, I think
for
there's a lot
obvious
to
reasons,
invoke it.
It's like the
Yeah.
same, but I loved that. That's my favorite.
Solaris,
Like,
I felt a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Too.
So this sequence, something I found very fascinating was, they were trying to mimic 1/6 gravity, right? And when you're doing a buggy chase scene, that is obviously difficult.
I have to give him credit. I felt drawn into that.
That was a
Yeah,
very
it's a great
fun
scene.
sequence. Nothing to do with the story. Sort of yet another hurdle our hero has to go through that has nothing to do with anything, other than painting a brief picture of a world that is far more interesting than the story we are being
I just
told.
want to lay the thought right now that it's a storm and a rough sea.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Just
but,
laying that groundwork.
But if the storm in the rough sea also like had a really compelling backstory that like actually had more to do than the main characters.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay,
I'm
but
gonna
so
get there.
yeah, had a really fun cardigan. The storm had a really fun cardigan.
Yeah.
The problem with the moon is that it's an episodic, unrelated episode and everything else that happens, and that to me was like, oh yeah, this is a Brad Pitt movie, whereas in World War Z something happens, Brad Pitt survives, something else happens,
Wait.
Brad Pitt survives. He just keeps kind of getting out of different situations.
Right, but isn't that? Oh, you're saying it's just
it
like
felt
World
like
War
a
Z.
2015 action movie.
I would even go earlier.
trussed
but
up nicely in 2019 graphics.
but back to but see we can't even have nice things at this point. They shot it at between 32 and 36 frames per second,
Which is
because
really cool.
they found that was sort of an easier way to mimic the movement in 1/6 gravity, which I found absolutely fascinating. And then they shot some of it with, I believe, infrared cameras to then be able to turn the blue skies black, and it didn't work perfectly because obviously clouds and things like that. But and then some of the, I think either the textures or the mats behind all the VFX work were actual lunar shots from 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, which is so cool.
When Stanley Kubrick originally made that.
Originally filmed the moon landing. It's interesting because I never thought they'd actually get Kubrick to the moon, but they managed to, so he could shoot it. New conspiracy theory. What up?
He's the wizard on the moon.
He's the wizard on the moon. Peter Dinklage, before his time, when he was that little ghost, completely uninterested in weird-ass lines in the video game Destiny.
I'm so confused.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry.
I'm not.
But you know what?
If
Peter
you're confused,
Dinklage
just
was
start
confused
shooting
too.
Everything.
I'm going to take a
That's how it
nap
works.
until this segment starts.
So I really liked that. I really liked the politics, ever so brief.
I like how it emphasized I mean, our main character is a misanthrope, right? So we have to be very careful when we are hearing about the world through his perspective.
Yeah.
But I did like the way that things were mentioned in the voiceover that were just like, I'm complaining about this, but I'm using this information to explain it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talked about the political faction and fighting, there's piracy, there's no borders, there's just countries putting down flags and claiming this is mine. I was like, that felt real to me. That felt like, oh yeah, that's us. That's us. Okay, we're being told by this guy who just hates everything about it, so I have to like be careful how much I read into it.
Right.
But at the same time, I felt like this is an important piece of information to have to understand why the mission's being done the way it is being done. So, like, I appreciate the thought taken into creating that world.
I just wish the and this comes back to something that Shahir and I actually talk about quite a bit, is that, and it's dangerous to think this way, but like, there's just, in my opinion, a far more interesting story to be told about that world, even if there is the MacGuffin at the end of the tunnel about a mysterious experiment gone wrong, causing flare up in the solar system that's destroying technology even back on Earth.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a MacGuffin. I don't think in this case it's a MacGuffin.
It's not. You're 100% right. I misused the term MacGuffin. I was just sort of trying to shorthand it, even though then I longhanded it. So apologies around. It is not a MacGuffin because
Sorry,
we
Internet.
understand. Well, no, it is not a MacGuffin. We could get into the definition of MacGuffin, but that's
it's like a reverse MacGuffin. There's a
not
point,
really. It's a catalyst.
Okay, there's a point. There is a goal, an overarching goal to which our character is not so deeply tied in this film, and then a bunch of other stuff happens, and it feels like filler in perhaps a script that was a little bit patched together and not necessarily strong enough to get us with full care to the end of the film.
It's so funny. It does feel like the film is laser focused on a moment, and will just do anything to get to that moment.
I don't feel like we're laser focused in getting there.
Okay.
I feel, but I don't know that the terminology we're using is correct to describe what the movie does, and I want to talk about some spoilers because
We're about 27 minutes in. We can get into that.
It's hard to not reference in this film because this film is all like a poster board of different story ideas.
Okay, so
Stuck to one big story idea.
from this point, there be spoilers beyond the
here
stars.
there be
Here there be
dragons.
Yar. What's a pirate's favorite letter? W. Or maybe it's M for moon because there's moon pirates. That's fun.
There are moon pirates. Spoiler number one.
Yep. Spoiler
Moon
number
pirates.
1. Moon pirates.
They don't really matter.
Well, okay. So,
I would watch a movie about moon pirates.
Well, okay. I want to frame the rest of everything that I say from here on out, from now till eternity, and the following. I feel like I just watched Moby Dick, and except this, instead of following Ishmael, we're following Captain Ahab's upper middle class son trying to find him. Like,
$10 says
his
it was
upper
pitched
class
like that.
privileged white son following, trying to find Captain Ahab, and I really feel like we're following somebody who's like, man, what if we did Moby Dick in space?
I mean, the end.
So think about how
Makes
everything
sense
feels
with that.
episodic.
Yeah.
So you're going through like you have your rough seas moment, as it were.
Yeah.
And Ahab is represented. The Ahab obsession is represented in both the father figure and the son.
Yes.
So
and to the defense of the film, and I won't defend it a lot, but I will say something that does happen that does link all of these episodes together is the flagrant loss of human life that he sort of just charges on through.
yeah.
He sort of just keeps being like, "Oh, sorry about
Yeah,
Tim.
yeah. Oh, my bad.
Tim
That
didn't
is-
make it through this thing I got him into. Yep. I better go." He keeps doing that, and ultimately that is reminiscent of his father, who
his father's
you
reckless
learn more and
abandonment
more.
of
Yeah.
humanity.
Doesn't in search of a higher humanity keeps fucking over regular humanity.
Yeah.
His Brad Pitt's actions are echo his, and so I was like, okay, I see where you're going, movie.
Yeah, exactly. The movie was very clear about what they
made
wanted
that point,
going on,
yes.
and this is where I felt like sometimes the voiceover, which feels like some of it was written after the fact.
It was everything.
Well,
it was the whole movie because they forgot to write dialogue.
Yeah, voiceover is very difficult to implement. The people who can, shout out Scorsese, can do it really well. But when you can't, man,
Shout out me in college.
but when you can't, it becomes distracting, and like most of the time, the voiceover that I was hearing was like, this is redundant.
It was redundant. They even reused some shots, and I found it drawling. I was tired.
Well, the points where they reuse shots was to try to like get you a little. It's an interesting thing when you're like in a film, like, hey, could you show us boredom? Could you make us feel bored without feeling boredom? And that's when he's traveling.
They
but then
succeeded.
Well, no, because we felt bored. Like that's where they didn't succeed. The thing about oh man, I lost the train of thought when we were talking about the way that the incessant murder that Brad Pitt does to get to where he's going.
The terrible collateral damage.
And then he just keeps dumping bodies into space.
So hold on.
Convenient.
So yeah. The thing about it is,
except for the dead lieutenant, right? Who got shot in the face on the moon by the space pirate.
Oh, yeah,
He throws
dumped
him off
of
the-
a truck.
Throws him off. He's like, hey, his body could be collected.
To be
back
fair,
like you can get that. It's
they're all wearing face masks, so that could have been another guy pushing that guy off. We don't know that it was Brad Pitt pushing shot in the face guy off the buggy.
No, it definitely
I thought
was
it
because
was,
he
yeah.
gets in the
'Cause he's
driver's
the one
seat.
The editing
drives,
seems
yeah.
to indicate.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I tried.
And it's reminiscent of his disregard.
Well,
it
but my-
makes sense plot wise. Just
but this
Yet,
is
yet when what's his face Donald Sutherland begins having a heart attack while delivering the one plot point,
a
he's
cardboard thumb
he's like,
drive.
oh,
which was accidentally pre-delivered before that.
that's when he's like, oh well, something bad's happening here. I'm gonna stick around. Nah, I'm out. Never mind. I'm gone.
So the interesting thing about all of the wanton destruction left in Roy's wake in this film is so it's mirroring the father's journey 100%.
Absolutely.
But the
Clearly intentional.
But the reason it doesn't work for me is because the father's journey has consequences that we see. And by that is the military is trying to figure out what's going on. The military is going to throw their son at him to go see if they can talk him down from doing whatever, figure out what's happening. Oh shit, he returned the call. Looks like we just got to nuke him. Like there's consequence to it.
Right.
In this film, in the story we are presented, there is zero consequence for anything that Brad Pitt's Roy does.
And that is why I disagree with Anastasia's pointing out of the of when we talked about unforgiving space. This space is so forgiving that by the end, the military is like, yo, bro, welcome back. Get out of the capsule. We'll slap a medal on you, and then you can go on a date.
By the way, your
27
ex-wife
people have
loves you
died
again.
and 27 people have died, and you have no explanation for it outside of to go. Yeah, sure.
He just said something in Latin, and they're like, this dude's smart.
Yeah.
God, you're handsome, McBride.
Just to reinforce this kind of like he's got this like nice upper middle class job. I mean, he's a major, which is a field officer. It's pretty high ranking, right? The only people he answers to is like lieutenant commanders and up. And
So it felt despondent to me. It felt very weird that while Brad Pitt's journey, while Roy's journey was mirroring his father's, the difference was zero consequences, forgiving space.
and we justified it by going, and I'm I don't mean to be snarky when I say this, but I mean to be snarky.
Sure.
Is that he's like, oh, I'm acknowledging my privilege. So
Did he?
Yeah, oh yeah, he just bitches about his dad the entire time. That is just like I'm pretending that I understand what's going on because I realize I have daddy issues and I'm so clever.
Yeah, the whole thing was him just being like, I really got to reconcile with my dad.
Yeah, I gotta and you know what? Honestly, I have to reconcile with my dad.
Like in real life.
Should we call him?
Like in real life. No, not now.
Okay.
No, he's probably asleep. But
It's 11 on a Friday.
like it's a story that
Let's all call him
Anastasia Anastasia was like, why does this story why do I see this story over and over? Because it's a story I think a lot of people do identify with, which is we are worried about are we reflections of the worst things that we see in our parents.
Yeah, and that was a good story, and I got it. At the end of the movie, I got it. It's just, He spent all that time and he went to space
And
it took
murdered
forever.
people.
He killed people and he's in hyperspace and he's got a feeding tube in his belly and he's going crazy and then he's in a spacesuit and he's fighting with Tommy Lee Jones and it's in slow motion. And I just kept thinking, just pay for therapy.
Yeah. Because
Just get a therapist. This movie to me was just like, men,
hard to-
men really got to deal with their
It's
feelings.
hard to get a therapist into
that's what it is.
space.
Well, no, they did, but he had a heart attack.
Oh, true.
It was
Maybe the monkeys monkeys could have
Maybe.
used some therapy too.
yeah, they definitely could have.
They
Also,
did
again,
use- they
back
did get
up.
therapy.
This is why I wanted to do spoilers in the first place.
Oh, yes.
Those monkeys did not matter. It was just a
No.
movie that I feel like this movie was focus grouped after it was made, and everyone said it's boring and you need more stuff. Also reminiscent in the clearly edited in after scene. Oh shoot,
I
this
think
actor
that's-
who I'm a huge fan of.
That's okay.
Orange is the New Blacks and Russian Dolls.
Yeah.
She's in there.
Yeah.
Not in a scene
As
that
like
is
the-
anyway interacting with Brad Pitt. It feels like they showed it to people and everyone said, there's no women in this movie and it's boring. You need more personality and also maybe some chicks. And so they stuck her in a shot in which Brad Pitt has nothing to do with her. You're literally just walking through a room like, wait, come back. No, someone with a sense of humor. Oh, God. And that's it. And I just feel like she so clearly was posted in afterwards because the movie lacks
I will
color.
agree with that statement. I don't think that they focus grouped and then they're like, add the monkey sequence.
Maybe not the monkeys. I can so see someone being like, you know what I'd love to see is a spaceship full of 2 baboons that killed 27
But here's-
people.
here's
We're not going to show any of that though.
From a
just this one
technical
bit.
perspective, here's why that was in there from moment one. The way that it is shot and the way that the information for both the characters and the audience is portrayed to all of us. Brad Pitt and nameless astronaut partner go into.
Who sounded a lot like George Clooney.
Yeah. Maybe there's some ADR. No. And so they go to this on the way to. I believe this was on the way to Neptune. Right?
No, it was on the way to Mars.
On the way to Mars,
It's on the way
from
to
the
Mars.
moon to Mars on the military craft.
Yes.
Thank you, Anastasia. They have to stop for a distress signal, and Brad Pitt doesn't want to, but it's regulation. And like, I did. There were small moments in this film that are actually very good when he's like, "Well, sir, you do rank here, so you could take control of this vessel. Do you want to do that?" And then Brad Pitt's like, "No." Like, that was a very interesting sort of like you see where his line is. Like, it almost actually might even play better into the fact that he has zero regard for human life because he kind of like doesn't want to take responsibility for anything other than the dad stuff.
It's not out of it's not out of arrogance, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
So then they stop, and this was a animal research vessel in deep space for some reason. Again, nowhere near anything else. No. So why would the research thing be out that far? Doesn't matter. Let's keep moving. They go in, and the reason why I think this was in there from the beginning is just like the moon sequence was like the action Mad Max moment, this is the haunted house moment. Because they break off, they're both on radios, and not to mention they're all in small metal tubes where sound probably carries quite a bit. Again, no scientist, but you know, if there's nowhere else making noise and you're trapped in a thing that holds noise, chances are you'll hear stuff. Monkeys are making zero noise first and foremost, so they're stealth monkeys. Then Brad Pitt loses communication with his buddy without like a crackle or anything. It just he stops answering his radio, and then Brad Pitt's creeping around corners, and then looks and sees the floaty thing, and then the monkey like is like behind the dead astronaut who pulls him aside, and the guy's mask is broken, his face is eaten, and his hand is ripped off. You didn't hear any of that when a monkey did it? This monkey belongs to the goddamn Foot Clan. Like, no bells were
Ninja
moved
monkey.
when
I don't see why this is so
but
difficult to
there
understand.
were 2 of them. There was another one that was just kind of like hanging out in the room being quiet while his friend did all this stuff.
Yeah.
There were undetermined numbers of monkeys. There have to be, because didn't they say there were 28 people on the ship?
Do you think there were 12
and he completely
monkeys?
abandoned.
Oh,
He's
that-
like,
those
there are
funky
on
monkeys.
there. We got to go. And then there's no resolve. There's no like, maybe they're locked somewhere else.
And
Maybe
it-
we should actually check.
We
No,
only saw,
they just leave that scene and it never comes up again.
Like there's like 27 people and we see like 3 or 4 bodies and they don't even look for the rest of them.
I think it was
No,
like
they don't even see any bodies. They just see the one guy.
Oh.
Yeah. At the end, you see some bodies in a different ship.
Oh, okay.
We see no fallout aside from the one captain of the monkey scene.
it's a ghost ship. It's a good show.
100% totally weird.
So then the reason why I think I think it was definitely in there is because it's the perfect sort of other swing of the pendulum in this adventure, because there's two moments that feel like they're out of different films, and I don't have a problem that they're there, but they definitely, even though they don't fully fit, they balance each other out, and that is the moon sequence and the monkey sequence. Everything else in this movie is either kind of political thriller or space waiting game.
Okay, so please.
Well, I also
Anastasia.
felt like the whole ghost ship monkey thing, like they needed to get rid of the more competent captain, and they're like, well, how can we kill him so that to facilitate other things later?
Well, I
No,
think
seriously,
okay.
because Brad Pitt can't. They have to show him taking over the spaceship, and then when he gets back onto the spaceship later, there's nobody in charge who can make a good call, and they set that up by killing the person who could make a good call.
Yeah.
But even to the problem of that point,
Yeah.
Brad Pitt just ends up killing that crew anyway,
I-
so he could have just killed the captain anyway. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I
See, I
think-
think we might be falling into the trap of seeing what's literally happening on screen and critiquing that, as opposed to critiquing the thematic problems that are
Oh,
happening.
Red, whatever.
And I want to introduce the idea that the monkeys and our sane captain, everyone,
okay,
is
what part of Moby Dick is that?
Well, actually, here we're talking about here. I think what it's trying to do, and I don't say it's doing it successfully.
Sure.
But I think what we're trying to do is talking about the danger of removal from Earth, the dangers of space, of essentially being in a void, of being alone. So what the scene, I think, thematically is about is how space and its vastness can be maddening. As these monkeys went crazy and killed the crew,
well, baboons are notoriously violent.
Brad Pitt actively dismisses his humanity while on the ship before he even goes. He says, this is not important. We have a mission. And the last remaining vestige of the thematic empathy is that captain who then gets killed in the void of space by rage that then, thanks voiceover, Brad Pitt says, I am that rage. I understand that rage.
He's like Space Batman.
I feel that rage. Yeah. So I mean the voiceover was like a little like over the head, but sometimes you belt it out for the cheap seats. I think thematically the monkeys are there to show the removal of empathy and how he actively, he's like, I compartmentalize. No, dude, you actively just got rid of it. You're not compartmentalizing. You are dropping your empathy for all humanity. You have none.
That's fair.
Very good point.
Yeah. Okay, but back to monkeys. Those monkeys sucked.
No, the monkeys were incredibly good at their job of murdering people silently. So the monkeys did not suck. The monkeys were efficient AF. It's just, I just think it was a little bit odd in the actual practicality of what was going on.
Yeah, it was. I think they were like, this would be a great way to build tension because he's got a thing he's got to get to, and we're going to delay it, and then we as the audience will understand why he's not going to be empathetic, why he's not helping. We're maybe being tried to be dragged along into how space and the void and the journey dehumanizes us. But again, it's not unforgiving space because at the end everything's okay.
Also, but they established this character as already having sort of a lack of emotional affect.
No, they don't
and-
establish the character. The voiceover tells us. That's different.
Okay,
And
Everything
the
is-
science of his
Our
pulse.
hand is held the whole film.
The pulse thing
Yes.
describes
But
it
they
as well.
didn't need that to show his lack of humanity. They have been demonstrating it in many, many ways from the very beginning of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
film.
Yeah,
so
no,
it doesn't feel like a journey. And
That
like he
was where I
loses it
agree
in
with Jamie
space.
that it feels like filler.
He isn't losing his humanity in space. It's already gone before he got on the ship. Like he doesn't have a journey in that way. So that scene doesn't work for me in terms of demonstrating the loss of humanity and all the things Red was saying, because I feel like the character was already there. And that
Yeah.
might have been them sort of showing it to the audience, but like you didn't. It wasn't a journey that we experienced with the character.
And that actually mirrors a problem / question I have about viewing films in general when we come across things that are despondent in two aspects of how they are crafted. And it's how the audience interacts and experiences those moments. So follow me down this monkey hole real quick. In the moment of the monkeys happening, I was like, fuck yeah. Like, in that moment, I was like, I didn't expect it. it was an interesting twist, and I didn't start questioning. Like, I enjoyed it until the end when I'm like, well, hold on. And then my brain did the pieces because the movie's a lot slower after that, so I got to sort of think about the monkeys in that moment a little more. But in the actual visceral, no pun intended, sort of animal lizard part of my brain, when it happened, I was like, good job, movie. You just surprised me in a movie that I have yet to be surprised in. But upon further inspection, I was like, no. When we as an audience view a thing, I've been noticing more and more, and I don't know if it's just with current day films or maybe because I talk about one a week and I have been for the last 234 weeks of my life.
Seasons.
Yeah, I know. But like, there's a difference in the feeling. There's a difference in the initial feeling and then the sort of like thoughtfulness after the fact. And I have found that the weight of one definitely can sort of counterbalance or counteract the other. In this case, I thought about it more than I enjoyed the moment, and therefore I'm like, it didn't work. Do you have this as well with films?
Yes, but though for me in this moment as it was happening, like it was creepy and it looked cool, but it felt from the moment they went there, I'm like, what are we doing here? And when they showed the monkeys, I was like, seriously?
Okay, Anastasia, I don't know how to describe this to you. There was a distress signal. When you're in space, you go to the ship with the distress signal. Now,
get that,
you
but
take a flashlight, you make sure that you're not the first female
Monkeys,
or African-American
come
crew
on.
member in, and you'll be fine.
And you're, ooh, Mario?
Yeah.
Little Luigi's Mansion reference.
No, but I agree with that and
Take that
what
back.
you're saying about the experience in the moment and the analysis afterwards and how one can win out. Going to a movie is an experience, and I want to have one. And sometimes I'm willing to suspend my disbelief and be like, "That was fun," and I don't care. But it has to also sort of work at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was never lost in this movie. I was never,
No.
or not
Well.
lost is not the right word. I was never going along with the ride of this movie. I was actively watching it, and
The wave didn't
sometimes
take you.
thinking, "Oh boy, it's still going." It never swept me up with it. My disbelief was never suspended, and that was sad for me.
Your disbelief wasn't suspended, or your interest in the story? Like that's
No,
the.
again, we left the theater, and I was like, okay, this is what this movie was about, and I'm on board with that. But
yeah.
it felt clunky is not the word because it is slick. But
I feel like disbelief for me was suspended due to the world building, but it's just the characters. Like when we start talking about characters and motivation, that's what knocked me out of it. Like this movie strapped me in and then shook me hard enough where the seatbelts broke. Like that's kind of where I was at. And weirdly, I just thought of this another Brad Pitt vehicle, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The interesting thing here is that movie's ending, and I don't want to give spoilers for what the ending is, but when that movie finished and I walked out of the theater, the experience of watching that movie to the end, I was like, I don't know if this means anything. And so like it didn't hit me in the moment. But then once I thought about it later on, that ending had so much more meaning for me. So it's like the opposite of the monkey problem. So I've experienced this recently in two Brad Pitt movies very, very differently.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been a more and more common occurrence for me. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting.
It's an interesting observation. I think there's always been tension between mechanical execution of a film and its narrative and its narrative purpose.
Yeah.
And the more movies you watch, and also generally speaking, the more we consume, with thanks Netflix, special thanks Netflix, Amazon, and other streaming services. Now that we get to consume more media, we're becoming much more aware, and I'd say language savvy as a culture. A human culture.
Do you think now? This is another sort of interesting sort of tangent on that very topic. The Rotten Tomatoes, which I hate using as a metric, but it's the only metric we have now. So yay! The reviewer, I believe, the critic. Numbers were as follows. Critics were at 83 for this film, and fans, which are also critics, are 43%.
Yeah. This is not uncommon.
No,
in this day and age.
But this is sort of with the idea that and I think your previous thing about us as a culture becoming more literate in the way films are done actually works both ways.
Yes.
It allows people to be more critical of things, but maybe not for, dare I say, critical reasons.
Yeah,
Like,
we're still learning how to think critically.
for instance, I don't disagree with the 43% of the fan things, and this might be a real look. Here we go. I will be a pretentious motherfucker right now. I don't believe that the reasoning behind the 43% is the reasoning why I would give this film, like, I would think that the 43% is fair. Does that make sense? Like when we left the theater, Jamie, I don't know if you heard the people around us, or as I like to call it, cell phone nation. Holy fuck.
Oh my God.
Holy fuck. They were just on their goddamn phones. And and I looked over at one point and I was just watching, and he was literally just not looking at it. The guy next to me was like literally not looking at an Instagram feed. And I was like, okay, whatever. But people were bored.
At 90 minutes in a theater that we had just
It was
under
2 hours.
dozen people at 90 minutes in a theater with less than a dozen people. 4 of them got up for the bathroom. So that was 1/3 of the people decided 2/3 of the way through the film that it is time to get up and go to the bathroom because I don't need to see the next 15 minutes.
Right.
Well, and it's set up the way the film is that there's high action and then there's vague character pondering and voiceover and inserted pictures of Tommy Lee Jones as a child.
Yeah,
What the fuck? It presented itself as, okay, this is fun. You don't need to pay attention unless you're in this for conclusion or resolution.
I don't even think they want you to pay attention for resolution. Like, the resolution comes pretty standard old hat ways. Right? We can talk about the ending at this point. Like, it's, he gets there. He gets the Neptune. Also, I don't know.
Can we talk about antimatter for a minute?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely can. Okay. I just do want to say kudos to this film for keeping it in the solar system. I just liked the fact that, like, that did sort of help it out. Very rarely do we see that. And very rarely, weirdly, do the outer planets in our... I will say more realistic setting films. It's either we're going to Mars in a realistic setting, or we're going to different galaxies in
far away.
Yeah, like in Interstellar sort of thing, or even a Star Trek if we want to do that. This was fun because we're at the outer edge of our galaxy. Neptune, shout out to Neptune. Neptune's always been my favorite planet. I mean, other than this one, because we can live here. But like, Neptune's always just the coolest looking one to me. So then when there was like the scene of the ship showing up and there was the rings and one was above and below, and I was looking, I was like, this should be painted.
Cool.
This should be painted on the van.
Yeah.
Like, it was very cool.
It looked cool. I have to pause because I did not give this credit in the front. I find a lot of the photography was beautiful, and
Yes.
I think it tried to give us vertigo at times, which I thought was great. I struggled in some sections understanding where they wanted my sense of gravity.
No pun intended.
Yeah, but I think overall the photography, especially in those wides, gorgeous and well thought out.
Yeah.
And then everything else, when it stayed in the mediums and the medium close-ups, they were doing that because we were supposed to always be basically inside Brad Pitt's head. And I think it was effective. I think the photography was very effective.
Hoyt van Hoytema, I believe, was if I might be butchering that name, but that was the cinematographer.
It kept us in the familiarity that it sort of promised us we would have. It's the near future. We're still in the solar system. Like, we haven't gone so far as to discover everything new. Like, the pictures are all real pictures of planets.
Yeah.
It's stuff we have now.
Cinematographer for Dunkirk, cinematographer for Interstellar. So there was some pedigree.
I thought it did look a lot like Dunkirk. Not at all, no. But no. But it was very. The cinematography was well thought out. I don't know whether that was the cinematographer or whether that was the director or a collaboration.
Yeah.
But I thought that was very.
It was
full marks.
My favorite thing about the film, like, because I love space, and the whole reason that I went to go
She
see
does.
this.
I'm actually jealous of space. I think she's got a thing going on.
That's
the
fair.
Well, space-
Who doesn't?
Space is so pretty. But Red was like, I'm going to go see this movie in the morning so I can do this podcast in the morning. And I don't really like mornings. And I was like, I don't want to go. And then I was like, what is this movie? Let me look at it. And he's like, and I was like, it's space. I'm coming. And I didn't know anything else about it. I just knew that
Yeah,
there
I didn't
was
lie. I
space.
didn't say it was about space or anything.
No,
It takes place in space.
I looked at something on the internet and saw a picture of somebody in an astronaut suit, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to this movie because it's space. And like, the scenes of space were so beautiful. I mean, and the way that it was shot.
You were leaning forward on the seats.
Every time that came up, and I loved that. I just wish that I liked the rest.
Sure. Well, with that in mind,
Yeah.
let's talk about antimatter, Red.
Oh, yeah. God, where do I start? Okay, first I have to accept whatever they present to me as antimatter is the thing, and that's the science, and there it is. Okay, and we got problems on Earth as a result of the thing. Okay, fine. You told me these rules. How can we resolve our... Okay, also, how white guy is it that we got a problem? Let's blow it up.
That's not going to make it worse.
This is a highly dangerous substance that could destroy life at the universe. So you're going to go there and you're going to throw a nuke at it.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, let's just be clear.
Sorry.
Also, but here's the deal. Let's say the science. Let's take
say the science is
the
solid.
science is solid. You can destroy this antimatter, causing this global catastrophe around the, or even this galactic
universal.
Yeah, right. You can destroy it with a nuke. Okay, cool. Why you sending a manned mission there? Why are you sending a manned mission there? Just nuke it. What's the worst thing that happens? You miss with the nuke? Like, you could send 9 nukes. It's Neptune. Nothing's happening there. Like, the second that there was a manned mission that Brad Pitt had to murder all of the people to then get to his dad, I was like, why
he did not
there
have any
people?
hostile intentions. I don't know why you keep saying murder.
He did. He's like, I have no hostile intentions, whatever. And it's like,
what's the legality of that? Would he be convicted of manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter?
I mean, who knows?
You can get convicted of that.
So since that was a military,
He's military.
He's military.
It's up
to
It was
court-martial.
admitted, court-martial. And,
Yes,
yeah.
good point.
A space court-martial.
Space Court.
Space court.
That would have been awesome if that was a television series in like the late 80s.
Space Court.
Space Court.
It would be the great grandchildren of all the characters on Night Court.
That would be so awesome. Like
Assuming
the bull
Donald
character.
Trump is still in office, he's gonna make a space court ASAP now.
No, he's going to talk about making a space court ASAP.
It's going to be the greatest
They'll
Space Court.
have definitely a logo,
There will be the logo will be not great.
but it will exist.
It will exist, drawn in Sharpie. So the way that when the antimatter comes, and let's get it. Let's look. Even though this is a problem I had sort of throughout the thing, the science of how the world sort of works seems very solid up until that point.
Yeah.
Granted, there's bleeding edge stuff. I don't need to know about what the antimatter thing is. I don't even need to know necessarily that the nuke would you might not fix it.
I'll even argue that it made sense that he had to ultimately be there in the end
Sure.
because the spaceship that the station that he's looking for is off its original course. So he has to kind of visually see it. Yeah. He tries to send a drone. Oh no, he doesn't. He's in that little thing. It just looked like a drone. He tries to get there, and there's an asteroid field in his way.
It's the rings.
There's rings. It's rings.
Which is tiny, a miniature asteroid field.
Yeah. There's enough manual stuff needing to be done by the end of it that I thought, okay,
that's disappearing.
I believe him being there.
I mean, but here's some other.
The end of my comment was a hapless shrug.
But here's the other thing. Here's the thing about that hapless shrug. Okay,
it.
so there's the rings of Neptune, right? That he gets there. Okay, he's just flown for 3 months. You're telling me that he just can't go around the rings at that point? He can't go loop doop doop loop doop 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 doop
But
doop.
then he doesn't get to have the dramatic moment where he jumps off the spinning thing and propels himself into space exactly at his spaceship.
May I point out that is very much like Ishmael riding the coffin from the Pequod back to safety.
Whoa,
Yeah.
Red.
Now let me ask you this, because I have not read Moby Dick.
Nobody has. Nobody since 1885.
But let me ask you this: in Moby Dick, to get away and to finally get home, did the ship ride the blast of a nuclear wave that propelled it back to its home port?
Thematically?
Tommy Lee Jones didn't eat the ship at the end.
If I remember correctly,
falls
Tommy
apart.
Lee Jones was strapped to the top of Mocha Dick, waving to everybody, being like, "Come on, it's fine," and everybody just kind of nopes out and dies. Right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I think it was I don't know. It could be just me theorizing, but I think we're trying to draw. We created that situation where we just parked badly, so that we could create that moment, which was probably imagined in the best possible light to be a thematically strong moment that could also be visually exciting. As a filmmaker, I think that's a great thing going on. I just think this was the end goal that I was talking about, where it just runs towards the end and everything else be damned. and I think they forgot about some important executables.
I think they forgot about anything past. Like, this movie is very clearly about the daddy issues. That's the entire thing. We can all agree on that. The second that issue is resolved, it doesn't give a shit about anything else it's done. Like, this movie, the end of this movie,
forget about its technical accuracy.
Goes from like realistic sort of space travel world to literal Star Wars. Like, you're riding the blast of a nuclear wave on a ship not designed to do that, and
and you still ended up being pointed directly at Earth.
Yeah, like,
well, you can
maneuver or whatever, but like
reckoning is a big part of space travel.
Co-pilot can help you figure that out.
I know autopilot; it's great in the future.
But the point of that method of getting home is that when something pushes you in space, you go indefinitely in that direction until something stops you. How did it get through the asteroid belt? Like that's the one thing that just didn't add up. And I thought this is a moment where you kind of someone rushed in the writers' room on this. On this
falls
bit.
apart.
How thick even
in
is
its
that
own
thing?
rules.
It took him 2 minutes to get through an asteroid belt using half a solar panel.
I will not. Oh, you talk about getting through the.
But it falls apart in its own rules. The science that we were told to accept at the beginning falls apart for many reasons, but very large kind of gaping holes here, which is this antimatter wave or this nuclear wave has been established to knock out all instrumentation. How can we suddenly use it as a thrust accelerant? It doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, this wave, the further it gets out, apparently gets stronger and stronger. So we're just going to detonate a nuke willy-nilly without aiming it anywhere. It just seems like we did so well of just accepting whatever's being told to us, and then I know you hate this, Matt, when you establish rules and then you don't follow them. Rules are made to be broken. I believe that. But here, these rules, man, you made the rules. You got to follow the rules.
There's a difference between breaking rules.
Down the space station.
Maybe there's a difference between breaking the rules.
You crazy.
And ignoring the rules. You can't if you inadvertently break a rule by ignoring it, that's fucking stupid. If you break a rule for a purpose, then that works.
As a filmmaker, also, I gotta say, it's incredibly frustrating to hear people complain about complain about fake science that I made up. I have to say, it's
not about fake science that you make up.
No. Hold on for a moment. I find it irritating that as a filmmaker, I'm just speaking as a filmmaker, that somebody comes to me and is like, why didn't you hit like the light switch, or something, or power down?
That's fair.
Like, because I had a thing, but I had to cut it out for time, or something, or like I said it went crazy, it's more, the moment is more important than itself, but I have to concede that if somebody has that complaint, and that's the main complaint, then I, as the filmmaker who made the decisions, probably failed in communicating what was really important about the scene.
That's what I'm saying.
No matter what level of sort of drama or future or fantasy you live in, we're still experiencing the human story when we see this. So it has to exist in a realm where a human's actions can make sense to it. And so when someone says, "Well, why didn't you just do this?"
Yeah.
I can so see how irritating that must be, and I can so see when that happens in a movie that, like, I've been a viewer in a movie where I'm like, that was amazing, and then someone's like, well, how did that work? And I'm like, just shut up, Kevin. Like, I want to dismiss it,
you
but
ever
I
notice
think
it's a Kevin?
There's huge merit to that criticism because people have to be able to relate to the realism, no matter how unrealistic.
But again, it goes back to I'm on board with whatever a film sets up for me. If the film sets up that there are willy-nilly rules, great, and the entire thing as that's going, as long as that is consistent, even if the rule that the film is making is that the rules are consistent, then not consistent, if we're going to even go down that like triple dog down sort of like path. But I guess this will go sort of bit into my final thought of the film of Ad Astra. This movie sets up what it thinks is important straight from the get-go, and
the relationship,
which
we never see.
It's all about dealing with your sort of paternal issues or trying to find closure in a familial setting, et cetera, so on and so forth. And we're told how important it is, and we're told how this thing and all this stuff. And the reason why I don't think it works is beyond all the technical acumen this movie shows, beyond the world that it paints that is actually very interesting, and even beyond the rules I think it breaks by the very end. The thing that the movie is telling us is the most important thing and the most emotionally resonant and human thing is never shown to us in any given way. It is only spoken to about us in a somber tone voiceover. And that is a mistake that I made in college films when I used to make films. And which is why that's sort of, I feel like it's a very early screenwriter issue, because you in your head have this tale that you want to tell in this emotionally resonant story. And I don't know if the writer or the director or Brad Pitt or whomever actually like if this is sort of like oh yes, like this makes sense because of various issues in their lives, right? But this film does not present that thing outside of whoever created its own mind. It's very I have dad issues. This is very important. I need closure. And you don't ever see why. And you're supposed to relate to it like in your own life, maybe, and maybe like a viewer is supposed to fill in their own gaps, but they don't ever give you enough narrative hooks for you to latch your own experiences onto it.
They didn't gracefully write the reason why he's going to get his dad.
So,
and in fact, he didn't need to. They already sent some other guys to do it, and he broke onto their ship, killed all of them in the process, and then did the same thing they were going to do.
Also, shout out to Liv Tyler for getting to do absolutely nothing, and Ruth Negga, who is one of my favorite actresses, who has a great scene, but again, it does not matter.
No, it does. It's inconsequential, and this is the part that really infuriates me is that so Brad Pitt dumps his toxic masculinity that he inherited from his father.
Of course,
becomes a good person.
Yep.
Learns to handle and express his emotions while maintaining his promise to always be honest. And he gets the girl back.
Yep.
Because she's just waiting for him
She's
to
waiting
do all
She
this
hasn't
stuff.
met anyone else or done anything
And
else.
it hasn't been years. She's just, hanging out.
She's just been waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not hear that he now appreciates the little things?
Oh, you're right.
And he's going to learn to share the experiences with other people and oh yeah. I was just like, oh, this is why I was like, this is a guy. This is the white upper middle class guy thinking like he's woke is basically what it is. It's like he's like, I've discovered myself. I got rid of my toxic masculinity. This is me. I'm the new age bra. I'm good.
By the way, we're going to reconcile at this place where a coffee is literally $8.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, I said my final thoughts. Who else wants to close out here?
I just want to say there's another scene when they're tethered together.
Tethered together.
Where dad and son are tethered together.
Yep.
And there's a scene in Moby Dick where I think it's called a monkey rope.
This all makes sense. Thematically, this is really connected.
Ishmael and Pequod are like skinning a whale or something, and they have to tie each other together because if one falls off, then both falls off. And I think in the book, it works really well how they're dependent on one another and how they essentially become one unit. And I think that's evoked again in the movie, but they like totally missed the point, or like maybe saw like the Gregory Peck version or something and be like, didn't they do something? I don't know. Maybe I just read it in Cliff Notes or something. But I think the movie tries to explore what it means to be a male, because there is no female perspective here.
Sure.
And I don't think, and it's probably gonna take a lot of heat for that. I don't know. I don't read the reviews.
It's not meant for that audience, so I don't think so. You can tell because as we watched the trailers, I realized I hadn't heard a woman speak in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
that was my problem with trailer 1 because they literally had no. It was just literally it's women in bed syndrome, which is basically like when the wife is just in the softly lit bedroom and there's voiceover of what's going on while she's stroking the dude who's going to do the crazy space thing's face. Like it's old and even the shitty. I shouldn't say it's shitty. I haven't seen it yet. That World War II plane movie coming out that looks like Star Wars, but it's
everybody should go see Tora instead.
But Mandy Moore in that film is woman in bedroom. Like that's what.
So
I have a harsh statement. I don't care for Mandy Moore, and not
We're
because
getting
I
off
don't
track.
think she's talented.
Wow.
Okay.
Now
I have to finish it. It's because I don't think she aspires to be anything else but woman in bed, unless she gets to sing. And I'm tired of seeing her and things.
Judge Mandy Moore for taking work. I think it's just the work that's being offered. I'm not gonna, whatever.
Sure, that's a fair point. I was frustrated because I always see Mandy Moore do the same thing, and I'm like, yeah, you should, girl, come on.
But sorry, Red.
Do
Oh,
something
not at
different.
all. Actually, I think it's important. It ties right back in. I don't think Ad Astra is a movie that needs to have any female voice in it. But let's do ourselves a favor and not have the girl waiting at the end.
Yeah.
If this is a movie about a man and his father, that's okay. Those movies can exist.
Yeah.
And if this is a movie about a man who learns that there is more in life than a fixed point goal, as you will, the stars, as the sailors used to use them to navigate, this, I think that's what it's referring to, is to the stars, is that he's trying to, his dad was a star, and now Earth in his life is the last fixed point that he travels to that we see, and that's a fine message, and I wish that we explored more of that
To more solidify that point,
Yeah.
astronauts still use stars to navigate
That's-
with a visual cue, and that's
We should all
that's
go to
pretty strong.
space. Yeah.
Oh God, I do not want to.
No, fuck that.
Really? Oh, no.
It's very forgiving. You can do anything in space. You can
You're gonna
murder
be-
dozens of people and come back.
Is it that easy to get into spaceships? Because everyone's just like, all right, let's just open the door. I guess like
I mean,
everybody.
he
there's
definitely crawled through a hatch based around the booster.
I know. I was like, how is he not on fire?
Yeah, just
Whatever.
or how's he not a pancake just from the lift that's
Yeah.
necessary? But then again, they're taking off from the moon, so it's not as much lift needs to be. I'm getting distracted. I don't mind that the movie's ideas exist or themes exist. I just wish they explored it more. But I have to give the filmmakers credit for trying to get there, because it is a hard journey to see this father-son story that we've seen a lot and actually try to get resolution. But it's not a magic pill. You can't just suddenly become a good person because you realize your father and your parents aren't the best people. We all realize that at about like 13. Like
You can't become a good person by kicking your dad into Neptune.
you really can't. And that's all I have to say
And
is
murdering everyone
Is-
along
he
the
kicked
way.
himself.
when my
to be
father
fair.
wakes up in 2 hours, I'm not going to send him to Neptune.
Yeah, I think that's a good movie.
Yeah, there you go. That's my final thought. Yeah, that's it.
Anastasia?
I don't have anything short to say.
Whatever.
No, I mean, for me personally, I was like this narrative again. And they
Yeah.
didn't do anything different or compelling or interesting enough for me to be like, okay, I'm going to sit through this guy and his daddy issues and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And I, like it's because the story has been told so many times. Like, I'd want to see, I want it to be compelling if I'm going to be into it. Otherwise, I'm like,
Otherwise, you're like Cell Phone Nation, which you didn't do. I'm not saying you
No,
did
no,
it,
no, no,
but
Tim Robbins yourself, you took your helmet off in space.
all right. And finally, Jamie.
I was okay with the narrative. I liked the narrative even. You can still have this story in this world, and in fact, I think it's an important one because the male narrative still exists. And I joke about the therapy message, but like, really, like learning to
Dudes, we need
be
to go out and
self-aware and to see what's around you and to not aspire to weirdo assumptions of what you're supposed to be is important for everybody. I liked that. I liked that I left the movie and said, okay, I get it. That is a thing that did communicate across to me. I just think that this movie suffered from a studio and production and money, and I don't blame Brad Pitt, but I think Brad Pitt being attached to it made it an attempt at a big box thing that didn't quite come together. And so I was frustrated inevitably because it was just a lot of like spectacle and extra pieces in what could have been, I think, a very clean and beautiful, graceful, minimal movie.
I see. You're saying because it was positioned
Yeah,
as a
I think
blockbuster, so to speak.
I think someone brought this screenplay up and was like, I think I've written something wonderful. And they were like, good idea. Have you thought about space baboons? And it didn't work for me. It should have been something different.
What if they said that exact thing happened, right? And have you thought about space baboons? And they're like, when have I not thought about space baboons? Like, what if they were all on board?
Hang on. What if it's two space
What? Anyway. All right. Well, this has been the only podcast about the film Ad Astra.
We're not going to make our fake titles?
I was getting to it.
Oh, okay.
I was literally leading right into it, but now you've done it. So
Yay!
you get to start, Red.
Oh,
If this was your film, what would you name?
okay. So my name would be Unforgiving Space, an untitled Brad Pitt movie. I challenge your listeners to make the most kick-ass poster that's ever been made for that.
Okay. It's just reminding me of Untitled Goose Game, which just came out on the Switch.
I
and
want you
everyone
to
should
play
buy.
with this idea.
Yeah.
Your listeners are like the best listeners.
Yes.
That they have some really great responses. So
All right, who else has one? Anything? First thing comes to your mind.
Unhook Me, a step-by-step guide to reconciling with the patriarchy.
Wow. Okay. Good. Very nice. Anastasia, anything?
I had to go to Neptune to solve my daddy issues.
Yeah, all right. That's not. I mean, highly accurate. Way more accurate than the IMDb thing. I might call this. Let's see. Basically, Moon Pirates. I wish there were more. I don't know. Like I was really interested in the Moon
really wanted
Pirates.
more Moon Pirates.
I was like, I am on board for this. But again, that's not the movie's fault. That's my own love of space piracy.
No, but it was an exciting moment though.
The
Have you
moon
ever-
was hands down the best part of the film.
Yeah.
Have you ever realized that we've had pirates for a long time? They still exist today.
Yeah.
And we are on something moving through space at an irresponsibly high speed.
Oh, you're saying so they are all space
We
pirates.
have space pirates now.
I mean, but and you're not wrong. But at the same time, then we
I'm
are
not incorrect.
Then we are a space podcast talking into space microphones and putting this out on the space internet.
And
I don't
that's
think
why
we're
the
pirates
aliens choose
because
not to
we're still
visit us.
attached to military. They have this whole monologue/joke in The Martian.
What? What do you mean?
We're not pirates in space. Okay, well, none of us are pirates in space.
Yeah.
But say the people that are in space right now are all under the command of national branches.
Yeah.
And even though it is uncharted waters to continue the nautical.
Yeah.
I like this. I like where you're going here.
You're not a pirate. You're a sailor.
You're a privateer.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's SpaceX.
Yeah.
Which is why I love any movie where anybody is doing commercial transport in space because that's what it's going to be. The Martian this is off point. The Martian, he talks about why he's a pirate because he no longer is under the command for some.
Oh, he
reason
makes
or
that a
another.
joke.
Yeah,
He's
but
joking
it's
about it.
The Martian is a joke movie.
No, I understand.
It's for jokes, but it's a logic point that he makes.
But this one, there are literal pirates.
Yes,
they call
these
them
are,
moon
these are
pirates.
legit pirates.
That pirates from the moon.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter
Moon
Dinklage.
pirates.
Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you have any thoughts about Ad Astra or any other movie you can rename in Latin, please send it in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at onlymoviepod. Shahir will be back, and next week, I promise there's only going to be about 45 to 50 minutes on how and when he met Will Smith, what he was wearing, what Will Smith smelled like. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk of Shahir meeting Will Smith.
I'm excited for it.
I kind of am too. I'm throwing gentle shade because I'm super jelly. Everybody, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm going to go around the room. Let's start with Anastasia this time. Anastasia, where can folks find you when you are not being real psyched about kicking paternal figures into planetary bodies?
I teach Alexander Technique at movementhealingarts.com is my website.
All right, excellent. Jamie, when you are not just up in arms, feral, some might say, about the use of space baboons who might be ninjas, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram at jimjam_Walsh. Same on Twitter. And that's, do it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I draw stuff.
Yeah, draw stuff. And Red, when you are not tying 2019 Brad Pitt vehicles tethered around your waist to the other side of an old boat hunting a whale from long, long ago that might not even be
It's
about
a mad
said
whale.
Yeah. Mad whale. Where can folks find you?
Well, you can find me on the credits of a couple of movies.
Okay.
And I really encourage everybody to go check out the Irishman releases, where there's going to be a limited theatrical release.
Yep.
It's going to be totally worthwhile to check it out in the theaters because of like the Atmos mix and all that jazz. But
course.
if you can't catch it in the theaters, it'll release worldwide on Netflix, I believe, November 27th.
And then when's the theatrical? Do we know the dates?
I believe it's November 1st. I believe that we get a little bit in the theaters before the streaming release. But see it in the theaters. Let me know what you think. Send Matt a bunch of emails and he'll text me once.
That is true. I'll be like, oh man. And of course, you can always find me at mattthewkrl.com for my life and works. Also, Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. Also, check out the good works we're doing over on Extra Credits. We just finished our History of Dentistry series, which I was unaware of this, and I'm very excited that that this sort of happened, but people were we had a joke in this where Rob, our writer, Robert Rath, who is a phenomenal writer for our Extra History series, he wrote this sort of gag into these episodes where it's like when the history of dentistry is obviously very gory, and like he'd start talking about like actually like taking a tooth and like digging a rock inside of your gum, and then exactly Anastasia, the exact thing, and then when we get to that point,
Anastasia just freaked
it
out.
cuts
Like,
out to
for
me being
those
like
who can't
pretending
see.
to read the script, being like, no, oh, Rob, that's great. We're not doing this, Rob. This is something that Rob wrote. Our viewers got really passionate about thinking that we were like cutting out history, and I was shocked that that was the intention. Of course, that was never meant to be. It was just a fun joke to have people that might be squeamish about this stuff. And Rob even did a very nice tweet about it. It was just very interesting to me that people were like, "We want the gore," and I was like, "I didn't know that's why you were here. I'm so sorry." But that was a fantastic series, sponsored by a great group, Child and Teen Health Services, which helps support some.
I'll go check it out.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Anyway, with that, next week we will be back with another film. I don't know what it is. I'm going to make Shahir pick because he's not here this week. We've been going too long. Everybody have a wonderful week. We will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.